Brittany and I, if you have listened, which I hope you all have, and if you haven't, I hope you do go check it out. If you've listened, you know that we started working together, and we had this crazy idea where we're sitting next to each other, looking at each other, and we're like, we should do something. Like, we should start a podcast. And it was kind of, I think, a joke a little bit. We were just like, that would be funny. That's a good podcast topic. Let's do it. And then we started like continuing it, and it kept going.
Let me tell y'all the real story. Mandy has actually had this idea for 2 years now, and she doesn't give herself enough credit. And I'm literally going to get emo.
I'm going to cry.
Anyways, she doesn't give herself enough credit, and I could have not asked for... Jeez Louise.
We put lashes on. You said lashes.
This week was really not the vibe. All right. We're all women. So, okay, she doesn't give herself enough credit. And the fact that she had this idea, she banked on it for quite some time. I work now at SSG. And we went upstairs and we just continued to talk about all this stuff. And she started to mention, like, yeah, I've always wanted to start a podcast. I've always wanted to do it. We continued to talk. I can't look at you. And just ideas continued to like pop into our mind. And we're like, wait, that's a podcast topic. And
y'all, we were talking about childhood trauma during this time too. Like, we weren't just like, oh, what are you doing tonight? Oh, that's fun. That's a podcast topic. We're like, oh, you have some trauma? Oh, do you date bad men? Oh, same, girl. Same. Let's bond. Trauma bond.
And so it was effortless. And that's something that like I encourage all of you, and I know we've all had that experience before, but like those people that come into your life where you don't have to try, you don't have to push, you don't have to ask, you don't have to try to figure out, like those are your people. And that's the space that we want to create for all of y'all, whether the person's here, out there, no matter where you go. I want to be that sounding voice, both of us, to be like, hey, like find your people, and like you will. They'll come to you, God, universe, whatever. It's going to happen. Lou. And so I want to give credit to Mandy. Like, she is empowered. And I have been blessed to be a part of Empowered and now be the second hand to Empowered. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Unreal.
All right, so we're going to kick this thing off. So with that, like I said, our wish here is to offer y'all the space to be able to connect with other women. We bring in all women who are empowering one another, trying to grow themselves, become the better version of themselves, break cycles, and honestly just be your best version. Our practice within our podcast is to visibly show everything that we stand for, being authentic, being vulnerable, being kind, and choosing to do that in everything that we do in all situations. Life is hard. Erin Gregory, where are you at? Yeah. I sent her a voice message today, and I was like, I'm literally fighting demons today. So I dare someone try me. And so I get it. But I was pretty kind today, don't you think?
I was a little shocked. Like when someone's like mad and then they're really nice. And like, if Brittany's like having a day and she's nice, you're like, oh, like when is it gonna happen? I know she's putting in the effort. And I know that she's doing her best to show up, and like, it's beautiful to watch and be able to support that. But we really want to provide that for every single one of you. So everyone who listens, I think when I initially thought of Empowered, it was like, there was something I needed when I was 16, when I was 20, when I was 25. Like, there was a support I needed that I didn't have. And there was like, I needed somebody to say like, this shit is hard. This is so hard. And to not have that, I get like choked up. It's like, to not have that, you feel so alone. And it's like, I want to ensure, and we want to ensure that you never feel like that. That you always know that somebody else is going through what you've been through. They're there to support you, and that you can make that connection to get through whatever you are getting through. So
yeah, I would say our purpose is to break cycles. Y'all watch us literally do it day in and day out, and we're going to try to encourage y'all to also do the same and be your best version. So without further ado, let's get it cracking.
Let's get going.
All right. The number one thing that we wanted to talk about is looking at life of things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And if you really think about that, we go throughout life and we're trying to figure out, okay, like, why is this happening to me? Why me? Mom. Why does hard things happen? Or like, why did I have a bad day? Or like, why is it a continual thing? And so I think trying to remind ourselves of like, okay, it's happening to us for a reason. Like, I'm going to come out on the other side. And when we started thinking about like, all right, what do we want to talk about? Like, where do we want to go with this podcast, with having all of y'all sit in front of us? It's like, well, you start where we all started, and that's your childhood. And so really breaking cycles, it gets real raw and true. And so I'm going to just crack it down. Many of you know, and thank God, so many of my people are here. But I lost my father when I was 5 years old. And I, by any means, do not blame him in a negative light of like, oh, that was, you call so much. But I look back on my life and I'm like, okay, because that happened, I saw things that kind of went with that and resorted back to it. And so starting off, I think of it and I'm like, all right, so my father passed when I was 5, and my mom's sitting right here and I can't look at her either. And I'm like, all right, so now she's a widow. Now she's a single mom. Now I'm the child with a father who passed, looking up to a widow and a single mom. Then with that, it comes, I'm looking at her and she's playing both roles. And once I'm looking at her playing both roles, then I'm seeking, okay, she's a woman, but where's the male, right? And so you look at that and then you start to grow older, and then society, you fall into a stereotype of daddy issues. And then I look at her and I'm like, but wait, she's doing it all. She's doing everything that a man can do and does do, but yet she's a woman and she's doing it. And so I've gone throughout life of always looking at her and I'm like, wait a minute, that means I can do it. So then I grew a hyper-independence relationship, hyper-independence, struggles a little bit. Daddy issues, relationships, accepting maybe things that you shouldn't accept. So there's all these things that you go through, and then you look back and it's like, but wait a minute, that didn't happen to me, that happened for me, because it's taught me so many lessons. And so it's like, with all of that, which is so much, you have to think about, all right, so what can I come out on the other side, and how can I be appreciative of this moment, and where can it take me after that? And now I'm parched.
Now she's parched. Okay, so obviously losing your dad at such a young age is impactful, right? Like, you've defined the kind of overlying, but when you look back and you're like, okay, young Brittany, like little Brittany, and I think like if you're in therapy, like shout out to my girls in therapy because it's amazing. And a lot of us are doing that like inner child work, right? Like, so you're like, okay, how do I give back to the smaller version of myself? Because when you look at it at the end of the day, like that's the version that then created the patterns you're in right now, right? So if you're repeating these same cycles, it's because you came from that. It's what you taught. It's what you learned. Like you learned these survival skills. So I am curious to know if you were to look back and give little Brittany some advice. So she's about to go through this journey and like she's going to grow up and be missing that figure. What piece of advice do you have for A, little Brittany, and B, any woman who's like losing that father figure and looking to maybe not fall into that daddy issues category?
Yeah. One, rely on your people that are actually there for you and stand up for you through and through without question, like I mentioned earlier. And so something that I appreciate and something that I saw is that I got my God-given family, my sister and my brother and my stepdad. And while that has offered more trial and tribulation, you have to think about like, okay, where can I lean on those who are going to like love me and nurture me and water my own flowers? And so I think the advice that I could give is just going back to that, like, okay, it's not happening to me. Like, this is happening for me because I can grow. I can look at someone who is now having to take care and having to take care of a family. And now I know, I'm like, okay, wait, I know how to nurture my daughter now. I know how to look for, like, my daughter needs me, because that woman showed up for me day in, day out, still to this day. I told her today, I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm having this live event. I want you to come. Here she is. And it's, the thing is that we can't get so caught up on, you know, the bad things. And it's giving advice of, like, lean on your people and know that, like, they're going to carry you through it. And then you're going to organically meet someone too who is going to continue and to push you and to make you grow as well.
I love that. That's beautiful. You definitely, like, Brittany, one of my favorite things about Brittany is how she loves her people. And you can see she was taught very well how to give that, like, unconditional, like, beautiful. So I had a moment with Brittany the other day where I was like, you just created the safest space for me. Like, I'm, like, sobbing. I'm like, also, just to give you some, like, preference here, Brittany and I have known each other for 6 months.
Literally,
like,
6 months.
6 months. This is, like, a very new, but it's such a, like, deep built bond where it's such a safe space, and you can see that, like, you were loved so, like, unconditionally and so well. Like, I get choked up, God. And, like, you just pour that out, and you've taken that and just made it something you just give so beautifully to others. And it's my favorite thing. So taking that, right?
Emo.
I know. We invited you guys here so you could watch us cry for 45 minutes. If everyone just wanted to partake too and start sobbing, please feel free. It's a safe space. Go ahead. Yeah, we're going to have a group cry after this. It's fine. If you have nothing to cry about, I love that for you. And, like, help a girl out.
Real.
But we all, it's, you were there. So taking that, right? So you've gone through this journey and you've been through some really difficult things, right? And they've shaped you, and they're not happening to you. They're happening for you. So what does that mean for Empowered? Like, why are you sitting here? What do you want to do with that? And what impact do you want to make with that?
Y'all, I have so much that I want to take this and take y'all and more people and us along with this journey. But I feel like we all travel roads. But I want to highlight the roads that I have traveled and lead y'all and everyone else in the right road, in the right direction. And I'm not perfect. I'm not, like, I don't know all the things. I don't know anything, actually. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I want to be able to be that space for people, and whether it's on the couch, in person, on audio, watching a video, to be like, wait, I went through that, and, like, I want to know more. And, like, what gave you that extra step, or what was the day where you were like, wait, I can go this way rather than that way. And I want to be that, maybe that stepping stone to be like, let's go this way. And let's try to figure out this new way of taking this and trying to figure out maybe the new ways of life and the new ways of this situation, in order to try and nearly, like, protect, but also make others learn lessons too in a positive, healthy light. Emphasis on healthy, excuse me.
Heavy emphasis on the healthy. Yeah, breaking those cycles. That was beautifully said.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think that because we're all going to create, and like I said, it all starts at childhood. And the thing is, and as you all know, I was a teacher, and so you learn your brain is developing at its quickest rate, ages 1 through 5. Like, that is, and I lost my father at 5. So it's like you go through these things and you're going to carry that with you. And so breaking those cycles, it's going to be hard, but also too, it can be healthy and it can be done.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Amazing.
But I also saw, the thing is, like I was saying earlier, like I saw so much, and I saw a lot of good things, and I have to give my flowers to my mom. I know that even a lot of times I think about, like, we're all living for the first time, and she too is living for the first time. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm hard on this woman. I'm like, this is the standard that you have to meet, and I want you to protect yourself, and I want you to stand up for yourself and all this stuff. But I remind myself today, actually, I was driving back home to get ready, and I was like, she's literally living for the very first time. Like, and I think we forget that. I think we forget those that taught us cycles and taught us things, and were there teaching us. It's like they too are doing it for the very first time. And so keep that in the back of your head of, all right, I have to show grace, while yes, I have to set standards for myself and I have to set boundaries for myself, I also have to give grace, because you're going to expect the same grace in return. And so that's my piece of advice for all of you.
Beautiful. Snaps.
But enough of my soapbox.
This is all your soapbox, just to be clear. Like, this is the soapbox.
I want to switch over to Miss Mandy and kind of dive into what first led you to where you are right now, and what are those things that you find yourself breaking to come out on the healthier side of?
Yeah. So Brittany mentioned that I have wanted to start MPowered for 2 years now. So I grew up watching cycles, and really unhealthy cycles. It's something I actually don't openly talk about and share very frequently, but I am the sister of a heroin addict. And that is such a difficult, coming from like growing up as a child, watching that chaos unfold, like that is painful. It is so shameful. And it's a very difficult, like when you are in that space as a child watching that and everything around you is like that, like you start to get internal about it, and you definitely internalize it a bit. So for me, it was like, ooh, that's a heavy cycle. How the heck do I get out of here? How do I not end up like that? How do I not follow those same footsteps and not put myself in that same path and do something different? Like I always was like, whoa, I feel really uncomfy. And when you're 6, you're like, oh, this feels yucky. Like, why do I feel so uncomfy? But when you're 27, you're like, you felt uncomfy for the right reasons. Like that was not your cycle. That was not your space. But at that time, when you don't have anybody to look up to, it's like, how do I do this? Like, what do I do? Like, you just see everybody continuing these same cycles and you don't have a blueprint to get out of it. You have no idea. So for me, it is so heavy on how do I provide? So I have a 16-year-old niece, and she is the like light of my life, like the sweetest, because I see myself in her. And so for me every day, I'm like, how do you create a path for her to be better, for her to do better, for her to not go through the same isolation and loneliness that you went through? How do you give her a role model to look up to and pave that path for her so it's just a little bit easier? And I think as like generational cycle breakers, that's our job. It's our job to make it just a little bit easier for the next generation. That's the kindness that we get to give back. We get to turn back and put our hand out and say, hey, let me help you. And let me see where you can go beyond that. Like, I would love for her at 27 to be like, oh yeah, I'm rolling in. Like, I'm making millions. Like, I'm doing it. And I'm like, that's my dream for her, because she got to watch me do what I'm doing and then to exceed beyond that. And for my future children, like generationally, right? Like, I want to change generations to come. Yeah. And that's why I'm here.
So you mentioned that you didn't have a role model, and also to the fact that like you did feel uncomfortable and like I didn't have that person to look up to. I want to know specifically, so now you're 27, how are you being that role model for the person that you needed then?
So I'm still trying. I think like we can sit up here and be like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is great. And I'm like, Brittany mentioned it, like she's not perfect. I am such an unfinished product. It is, and it's the most beautiful but daunting thing all at the same time, where I'm like so equally frustrated every day because I'm like, you're brilliant. You should not be doing that. And I'm like, let's do better. So I am continually trying to figure out how to do better. And I think being really vulnerable and authentic to say like, I'm not perfect, and knowing where you're at and being able to meet yourself where you're at. So like I'm in therapy weekly. I do the therapy. I'm like, we're going to grow. We're going to be better. And I am such an advocate for it. I'm like, when you don't feel well physically, you're like, I'm going to go to the doctor. And when you're doing something so hard, like breaking these generational cycles, like you cannot do it alone. It is not possible. Like the work you do in therapy is profound. And so it's like, I am now learning. So if you came from an environment maybe similar to me, you may also be a recovering people pleaser. So if you are a people pleaser, and I like to say recovering because like it's always a challenge, like give me your hand, please. Thank you. Okay, this is my space. I love it. I love this for you, and we can connect because I am the worst recovering people pleaser. So when you grow up in an environment like that, like your job is to not make more chaos, right? Like my job is to be perfect. Don't make it worse. Don't make it harder. And so for me actively every day, it's like, I now need to learn how to set boundaries. I'm 27 years old, learning how to set boundaries for the first time in my life. And when you don't set those things, like it shows up in so many different ways. Like your relationships are not healthy. Your friendships are not healthy. How you feel about work, it's like nothing is healthy. And so as a recovering people pleaser, it's like I'm actively working to set those boundaries, hold those boundaries, and then know that like my feelings matter, right? So if you're a people pleaser, you're probably like, oh, my feelings don't matter. It's fine. It's okay. Stuff it down. Like, no, if something made you angry, say it. Like you get to be angry. You get to be sad. You get to be all of the big things that you didn't get to be as a childhood. So I am actively like working on and living through that and ensuring that like I'm not progressing backwards, right? Like I'm rewriting the story and building something new and demonstrating that continually.
And I think y'all today, that is the thing. She is such a people pleaser. And in fact, I walked in here today and the floor needed mopping. And I was like, does anybody have a mop? Do we have a mop here? Oh, we had the cleaning crew earlier, but someone told us that like we didn't need it and that she would do it. And I said, was she wearing a green dress? And they said, yeah. And I said, that was Mandy. She likes to people please. I said, see there. So here she comes in here cleaning the floor, which it's just, that's like the smallest example. But
yes,
you do, like you try to people please. And all of y'all openly admitting, and thank God for the ones that didn't, like shout out to y'all for not. That is healthy. But it's the fact of you can still please people by also pleasing yourself. And I think people forget about that balance. It's like, oh, well, I have to completely empty my cup.
I don't think you can please them unless you please yourself.
That.
Right? Like I'm learning like my people are much less happy if I'm unhappy. And it's such a like weird shift to be like, oh no, you need to be happy. Like your needs need to be met first before you can actually even like, you can't even people please well if you're not putting your needs first because like, you're just not going to do it well. And like, not that we want to people please better, but it's like you cannot do anything well if you are not putting your needs first and making them known.
Yeah. So with that, I think, once again, it's our purpose and our goal to be able to look at y'all and be like, we're going to show up authentically. We're going to be extremely vulnerable. And I think with a live event being the very first one and us being like, yeah, my father passed when I was 5 and I have daddy issues and I'm a sibling of a heroin addict. It's like we're not here to sugarcoat and we're not here to be fake and we're not here to kind of just sit up here and giggle. While yes, we want to laugh and we want to giggle and like bring so much happiness. We want to be like, hey, like we're real humans and we want y'all to be real, raw, and true and honest with yourself. Because I think that's another thing. It's like, you know, you want to treat yourself with kindness and like you want to please yourself to then be able to like show up for others. You also have to be honest with yourself as well. And so we, of course, want to encourage y'all to do it on your own time and the bigger we grow
and
too.
Hopefully like coming together, like the goal here at these events and the podcast and like creating spaces for you guys is like you're finding the women who want to do the hard work. You're finding those like-minded women who are like, I don't want to keep these crappy cycles going. I want better. I want bigger. And you're aligning yourselves with those women. Because I'll tell you, like the relationship that the two of us, like it's been profound. Mm-hmm. It truly has helped me to put the work in. It's created a safe space for me to talk about the work. Like it's hard work. And if you can't talk to anybody about like, hey, I'm going through this and this is really hard. Like I'm having such a hard day. And if you can't be vulnerable with anybody, like that's terrible. It feels terrible. I'll tell you, like it feels miserable. So you have to have those genuine quality connections to be able to say like, hey, I need you to help me carry this load right now. Like this is too much. I need to connect. I need to feel that. And it's a give and take, right? Like don't find somebody and trauma dump on them because Lord.
Speaking of, actually, I wanted to, so yeah, don't find someone and trauma dump, but also too, I really want to highlight because we still live in a society where it's like, okay, we talk about mental health, right? And May's actually Mental Health Awareness Month. But we talk about like, oh, I go to therapy or like I struggle with this. And it's like, yeah, it's your brother. Like, what does that have to do with you? Or yeah, it was your father. What does that have to do with you? Or your mother, your sister, whoever it may be. It's like, yeah, you'll be all right. Pat on the back, rub some dirt on it. And a lot of people are nearly afraid to open up and be like, I'm struggling. Like, what do I do in this moment? And people fear doing that because they're like, I'm going to be looked at, oh, you're playing victim, or oh, you're just sappy, or oh, you're not strong enough, or you're weak. And that's the thing where I want to also encourage y'all, like, be in a healthy mindset of knowing yourself and finding yourself and nurturing yourself, but also too being like, this is something that I want to take care of. And that's powerful. And then looking at another woman and being like, hey, I actually see something in you that I know is broken. Let me help you take care of that. And I think within the last 6 months that Mandy and I have become, we actually call ourselves husband and wives. It's really funny.
It's so bad. And it depends on the day. Some days
does.
I'm the husband and some days Brittany's the husband. And it really depends on like the thing. And we're like, oh, this is a legit marriage. Like, I'll be like, honey, did you pick the outfits for today? Like, did you take the notes? And I'm like, did you eat today? What you got?
All the time. She asks me if I ate. Jazz. But the thing is, I have learned so much. And like, I even said to my mom the other day, I'm like, boundaries. And I never really thought about boundaries. I never used to use the word boundaries before I met Mandy. I'm like, okay, yeah, like let someone walk on me like I'm a rug. It's the fact of like, you're gonna find these people. And if you don't have them, we'll be it. Like, please. Because I'm gonna be not in front of you, not behind you. I'm gonna be walking right beside you. And so I think that's our purpose. And like, that's what we wanna do. And we wanna encourage y'all to do it with us, because we feel that because you're here in this seat, y'all actually want to do it with us. And so we appreciate it. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, it's unreal. We're so grateful to have each and every, like, you guys have created a safe space for us to sit in here and talk about things that are so deeply profound for us and emotional and vulnerable, right? Like, how often do you hear somebody get up here and be like, yeah, my brother's a heroin addict and I'm really struggling with it. Like, that's a really hard thing to do, but each one of you showing up and creating that safe space is so beautiful. And I hope each of you know that and like take that with you too. Like, create that in your life, create that for the people around you, be that for others, and find others that are going to create that for you too.
Yeah. So with that, we are going to open it up and let y'all talk to us for a second. Not trauma dump or open about your trauma.
I mean, if you need to trauma dump,
I mean, if you need it, we'll be here.
Yeah.
But we want to ask y'all questions. And it can be about things that we mentioned. It could be about something that you're struggling with and like finding direction of where you need to go. Doesn't have to be sappy, real, raw, true. It could literally be like
funny.
What I ate for lunch today.
Like, where'd you get that cute outfit?
Period. Amazon. But yeah, so if anybody has questions, y'all please ask. Don't feel uncomfy. Once again, we started this whole thing to be.
She didn't even let you finish, and she had a question.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. What is your question?
So I've known Mandy for a while, so she knew I was about to be the first one. I wrote it down 20 minutes ago.
Love it.
I was hoping. So when you asked who's a people pleaser, I'm not a people pleaser. I luckily was around a lot of people younger in my life who helped me create good boundaries. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, I'm very hard on myself, and I to a point where like if I can't be exactly perfect all the time, it's very detrimental. So I was gonna ask, what's something that you two both talk about, or what's something that you think to yourself daily, or bounce off each other with your friends that helps you not hyper focus on perfection and being that perfect version of yourself, and more so focus on progress?
Oh my gosh. I think that I could just maybe copy you on the text messages I'm sending to Brittany every day. Because nobody is harder on themselves, like so accomplished, so well-rounded, like such a genuine quality human being. And then the things I hear come out of her mouth, I'm like, excuse me, ma'am, like you are just crushing it. You are making it happen. And I think like when you start internalizing those things and saying them over and over, like what you are saying to yourself is going to become the truth, right? Like if you say it once, you're going to keep saying it and it's just going to get worse. So like you have to be so, and I tell this to Brittany all the time, I'm like, be intentional of the things you say to yourself. Like if you catch yourself saying like, oh, wow, I sucked at that. Like stop yourself, hold yourself accountable and be like, hold on, that wasn't very nice. Would I talk to a friend like that? Like, would I say that to Brittany? Like, would you ever say any other thing? You would never. You would be like, oh my God, you're crushing it. You're killing it. You're amazing. Like talk to yourself how you're going to talk to your friends. Like you're the best friend you're ever going to have. And you would never say anything like that to your friends. Like you would never be like, you suck. But internalizing it. And so like changing that and being intentional is like my biggest, it's something like I am such a perfectionist and it's like it can be to a detriment, but I have worked so hard this year to be like, no, you're just doing your best. Like meet yourself where you're at. You're giving it 100% and then zoom out too. Sometimes you're so focused on something so small and so silly and you're like freaking out and you're like, man, I really just blew that. And you zoom out and you're like, oh, but guess what I've accomplished in the last 6 months? Like, look at all of these things. I am incredible.
She'll actually, and that's the truth, y'all. Like Mandy, I have honestly lost track of all the things that I say to myself, and she's right. But even if I look at myself and I'm like, wow, gross, she's like, say something kind to yourself right now. She will literally not press record on our podcast because I'm looking at myself on her little MacBook, and she's like, say something kind to yourself. I'm not starting it. And I'm telling y'all, and that's what I'm saying. These people that you find in your life, like, keep them. It's organic. I met her at not a healthy place at all. I've got a few people who can testify to that. But that's what I'm saying. You've got to, like, trust that. And she will tell me. And we're obviously matching. I had these at my house because my husband does not steam. The wife
I don't
does
steam. I just put the clothes on.
So I forgot her clothes. I left at 4:59. I was supposed to leave at 5, and I was early. And I was like, oh, okay, great, good. I pick her up because the husband, now I'm transitioning to the husband as I was the wife just 5 minutes before that. And I was like, Mandy, I literally forgot your clothes. And then I started wigging out because a road is blocked going to my house. It was 5 o'clock, Charlotte traffic. And she's like, we can't control this. So don't freak out about it. We can control it. And so you want to be a perfectionist. You are a perfectionist, and you're hard on yourself. And you're like, I'm not doing good. Or I need to do this better. Or I'm going to freak out and hyper-focus on this one piece that is not exactly where I want it to be. 1, be kind to yourself. And then 2, what can you control? And focus on that piece of what you can't control.
I think we have time for one more question.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to throw the deep one here. Sorry. Now, resonate with both of your stories, specifically you, Mandy, on having a lot of trauma, specifically with your siblings. I'm the youngest of 6, very mixed family, got a lot going on there. I've dealt with this many times, but I'd love to hear both of your answers on how you have reflected or what it was like to set your first boundary with family.
Ooh, okay.
That's a good question.
So,
Sorry.
yeah.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah. So I set my very first boundary with my family when I left Vermont at 19. I literally was like, I cannot be here. I can't do this. Like, you start to look around and you're like, there's something that's not working for me here. And I'm someone where, like, it's hard for me to set boundaries if we're in the same space. So I was like, well, let me fix that real quick. Let me just move to North Carolina. That'll set the boundary. Yeah, the 10 out of 10 recommend, honestly. Makes it a lot easier. But I think it's interesting. So I'm the baby. I have 3 other siblings. I'm the baby by far, but like a good 15 years. And my other siblings have a very different childhood experience than I do, right? Like, they got different parents. They were younger, right? Like, they're still learning. But then there's this idea, and like, it's interesting. Like, I've had this conversation with a sibling where it was like, you didn't experience trauma. You didn't have any trauma. You had a perfect childhood. You had it made. If you had have went through what we went through. And so, like, my first hard boundary I set was like, I don't want to be around this. I'm not coming home. I'm not going to do this. And you have to, like, at the end of the day, like, family is a really beautiful thing. And it's such a, like, it's a bond that when it's healthy is unlike anything else. But if it's not healthy and if it's not supporting you, like, it's supposed to support you and uplift you. And if it's not doing that for you, it's not family. Like, you can, at the end of the day, choose. If your blood given family, like, isn't going to do it for you and isn't going to be what you need and support you in that way, set the boundary and choose it. It's hard. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there are holidays or things where I'm like, I want to go home and make Christmas cookies and do the normal things and do all of that. But it's like, I then get to recreate that. So, like, knowing that you have the control, and then I want children one day. So I will then create a safe space for that, and you get to control it then. But knowing, like, family, it's a beautiful thing if it's healthy. And if it's not, then you have to do what's best for you and set that boundary and create the space.
You asked, like, specifically, and I'm trying to think back to when. And honestly, I think, like I said before, Mandy, and growth and learning, like, I didn't really know, like, okay, what's a boundary? Or I never really focused on boundaries. And here recently, and even Mama and I were like talking about this, I'm doing it more often. And it feels good, y'all. Like, it literally feels good. And while, yes, it's hard, it's like, wait, like, I just stood up for myself. Like, I'm powerful. Like, you feel empowered, truly. And honestly, I'm gonna call Mom out really quick. She's gonna be like, Jesus, Brittany. But it was a simple, very, very simple situation. I was actually in Colombia, so some of you know I'm from Colombia. Mama still lives there. I was working remotely, and I had to take a call on my computer, and she's over here giggling. She's got a lot on her plate. She lives in her own world because her world doesn't stop, just as we all have our own things, but it is so captivating, right? And I am mindful of that. But I was sitting in the dining room table because we ain't got nowhere else to sit in the house because it's got antiques every other corner. And I'm sitting there and I'm on a sales call with a potential client, aka I'm having to really give into this guy, like sell our services, okay? And she's walking around the house and her thing is shit. And I'm like, and I'm looking and I'm like, yeah, and my recruiter is on the other side, Dalton of all people. And I'm sitting there, and then, you know, my camera's on, and I'm sitting at our dining room table where the kitchen is behind me. And I didn't think, and this is where you can self-reflect, I didn't think to turn on the blurring background. So here comes Mom in her pajamas, bedhead.
She's selling services. She's got it. Mama's nailing it.
And she's walking, like, pulling the trash can out. Well, then she walks into the living room. And while, yes, this is so funny, I'm like, God, I mean, the boundaries, it's like, ding, ding, like, just like, screw them. Like, what, like, whatever. I could care less. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching her this whole time. And then finally I get off the call. And she's in the computer room. And I'm like, Mom? Yes. Just ill as a hornet. And I'm like, will you please come here? This literally happened last week. And I'm like, will you please come here? She's like, yeah, hold on. So she comes in there and I said, I have to set these boundaries for myself. I feel as though you just completely disregarded everything that I was doing. And whether it was intentional or not, I have to tell you that. And she looked at me and she goes, I'm so sorry. And it was as though she just like killed a flower or something. And I was like, it's fine. Because in reality, it's fine. That's my mom. It was a sales call that I don't really care about. And it's the truth. And she thought that I was on the phone with my hair and makeup business partner, but to my defense, like, that doesn't matter. So setting that boundary, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm on the phone with Billy Bob Joe, like, I still wanted that a little bit of respect, right? And so it's not the fact that, like, when setting these boundaries with family, you have to be like, I'm not coming back home. I'm not doing this. I don't like the way you act. Like, all of those harsh, like, really heavy things. But it's like, hey, I need you to come here for a second. Like, what just happened? I feel as though, like, you just completely disregarded what I was doing. And, like, I need you to know that that's how you made me feel. And, like, we can talk about it and chat about it. But, like, this is where I'm at right now. And so I would say that's the most recent boundary that I just set.
Living, breathing, just in our practice.
Living, breathing, and we're all sitting together.
Growing,
but, yeah.
Beautifully. Okay.
Let's see. What time is it now?
We are well over, lovely friend.
Okay.
So I think we're going to wrap it up. Before we wrap it up, we do want to announce our giveaway winner. So if Nicole...
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah, you can
really
say
quick,
whatever you want.
It's just heavy on my heart. Or not heavy, but, like, on my heart.
Oh, it's heavy.
One, of course, like, we'll say our thank yous and give our spiel in just a second. But I also want y'all to know, too, like, that was heavy, right? And I don't want y'all to walk away here feeling like a load is on y'all. Not our load. Have your load come off to you and or come off to anyone of in a positive light, but also to feel empowered, really. Know the struggles that you're going through with whomever, with yourself, whatever it may be in life, a goal that you're trying to meet. It doesn't always have to be negative, like something that you're striving for, something that you want perfect or like close to perfect, anything like that. And like, I want y'all to step away tonight knowing like, okay, I can do this because I can do hard stuff. This was hard, but honey, we got it done.
Y'all, I just want to like take a minute. Like March 12th was our first episode.
Yeah.
So we're like infants, really. Like we just released our 10th episode. Our 10th episode is coming this week. And so when we're like, oh, we want to do a live event, like we don't public speak. I don't know if y'all don't know this, but like this is not our jazz. So it's like getting up here, being vulnerable, and like there's public speaking, and then there's like, oh, here's my childhood trauma. Welcome, nice to meet you all. I know you all on a first name basis. Great. And it's hard, but it's also like it's hard to show up and like be present and do that work. So as much as it's like we're doing the work here, like each one of you is doing that work. So be gentle and kind with yourself. Find the people that help support you in that work, right? Like find your inner circle, find your empowerment, and make sure you're finding those people who are going to help you through that work and hold your hand. Like they say you resemble the 5 people you spend the most time around. Make sure those people are the kind of people you want to be. Like surround yourself with the women that like, you're like, wow, I want to be like that. That is what I want to be. And I guarantee you those women want to be around you too.